The war in Ukraine is approaching its 6th month of battle. That means supplies are now extremely hard to come by for many Ukrainian troops who are there on the front lines. Some soldiers are even resorting to crowdsourcing in order to get the necessary equipment they need for battle. NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman joins us now from Poltava, Ukraine. Hi there.
Morgan, we've talked so much in the last 5 months about the HIMARS and the fighter jets and the long-range artillery that Ukraine says it needs from the U.S. and other countries to fight Russia. But now that this war is approaching its 6th month, we found that Ukraine's needs are much more basic than you might think.
On a typical ambulance shift, Dr. Eduardo Kika says he treats as many as 5 troops injured on the front lines, some with chest wounds from shrapnel or landmines who can't breathe on their own. He's practicing using an artificial ventilation device that Ukraine didn't always have, recently donated and now saving lives.
What are the biggest needs in terms of medical equipment right now in Ukraine?
Tourniquets, sponges to control bleeding, and bandages. On the front lines, our soldiers need painkillers.
For months, the world has heard Ukraine's calls for long-range rockets and artillery, the U.S. sending billions in heavy weapons. But as the war approaches the 6-month mark, Ukraine's supplies of many basic necessities are running low, leading crafty Ukrainians to crowdsource their way through a war that has no end in sight.
Typically, a military could provide its own troops with the basics needed on the battlefield. But as more and more Ukrainians join this fight, some of them are turning to surplus shops like this.
Some citizens are taking matters into their own hands by sponsoring individual troops, like Dmytro Kuzmierchuk, a former taxi driver who's at this Odessa market buying gloves, goggles, and shirts for 6 soldiers fighting near Donetsk.
Ukraine wasn't ready for this war. We never thought that our neighbor, who turned out to be our enemy, would resort to a full-scale invasion.
Kuzmierchuk says Ukraine had enough provisions for its active duty forces before the war, less than 200,000 according to the International Institute for Strategic Studies. But since Russia invaded, Ukraine has mobilized hundreds of thousands more reservists and others. President Zelensky says Ukraine's forces now total 700,000. In May, President Zelensky launched the national charity drive United 24, asking donors from around the world to sponsor everything from uniforms and body armor to X-ray machines, or even to mail their own toy drones to Ukraine. At Ukraine's presidential offices, I asked top Zelensky advisor Mikhailo Podolyak whether Ukraine has the basics it needs. He says with a front line more than 600 miles long, Ukraine is burning through ammunition and small arms, protective gear, first aid kits, and even food, imploring foreign nations to keep sending more. In the capital of Kyiv, the tables are packed at this Georgian restaurant, but the chef is long gone, deployed to the front lines without basic equipment like night vision goggles and a vehicle. His restaurant now devoting 10% of all bills to get him what he needs.
All Ukrainian people are help our army, and if they looking for a way to help, they have this way.
In addition to the national charity drive that President Zelensky has driven, there are, of course, a number of non-governmental organizations as well as nonprofits like the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, as well as UNICEF, who are working on the ground here to try to get Ukraine's military and civilian population what they need to survive this war. All of them very eager for help from people around the world.
All right, Josh Letterman there reporting on the ground for us. Josh, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.